That was a wild amount of pop-ups that just happened when I logged in. Holy Christmas. Sheriff Harlow just a minute to get back. She's at the courthouse today and has an officer that she's supervising with her.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I'm pulling double duty here. Excellent. Do we have enough?
What just happened? Okay. Yeah, we've got quorum, Jen.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so it is 1:03. I will call the meeting to order. Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda? Did everybody have a chance to look it over? Okay, so everybody's good. Did everyone have a chance to look over the meeting minutes for September 11th? If we did, if I would entertain a motion to accept those. I think Katie made that motion. Do we have a second?
Loretta's seconding.
Loretta, oh, thank you, Jen. I can't see everybody, so thank you for doing that. Okay. Everybody, and then can I get a motion to, sorry, we have first, second, everybody in agreement? I'll say aye. Thank you. Okay, Jen.
Yeah, so I apologize for not sending those slides out quite as early as I wanted. I was fighting with a couple of things with formatting and managed to make it work. So were folks able to, with the PDF version I sent out, were folks able to figure out how to get the presenter notes so that it's not just good, good. So clearly that those are not like the finished product. There's a few things I want to add to that. Certainly some videos are going to be going in appropriate spots to kind of emphasize what we're talking about and give folks some more options to be interactive in the classroom version. And then also, I'm wanting to add, and oh, for God's sakes, I've got so many windows open right now. I'm wanting to add just a little bit of discussion about the maze of coercion, because I think that's a really important part of getting that context. I'd like to introduce that to people. Let me see if I can open it up and share that with you guys. Have folks seen that before? It was new to me, but I think it gives a really nice visual. Did it do the thing? All right. I can't tell if you guys, I can still see you guys and not
We can
my
see it.
screen. Okay, great. God, I love Teams. Yeah, so I just think this is got the potential to really illustrate to officers like how complex the situation is for victims. I think sometimes that escapes folks that it's not just the events, it's all of the other things that are happening around the events. So that's something I'm looking to work in. And I'm happy to send out a copy of this if folks want to take a better look at it. Or you can, if you just Google maze of coercive control, it's like one of the first things that comes up. Yeah, questions, concerns, comments. I'm going to stop sharing that coercive control maze here. Go ahead, Lisa.
Thanks, Jen. Just a question. So that maze you're going to show, and then also the power and control wheel, or is that replacing that?
So I don't know if I may show the power and control wheel and say, okay, this is the next step from that. This
Yeah.
is a more complete picture. So that's probably a good way to
Sure.
to
I was
bring
just
them together.
gonna bring this up later, but I'll just bring it up now. If you're gonna plan to use the power and control wheel anyways, my recommendation is to use the version that includes LGBTQ folks. And I have that, so I'm happy to send it to you, but
That would be
just
great.
thinking of a lens of inclusivity, and thinking about the relationships that aren't just heterosexual where those things come up.
Yeah, that would be great, Lisa, if you'd send that along. Go ahead, Sarah.
I think I saw a question. So I just want to say thank you for sending out the materials that you're working on. Appreciate it. And I think I haven't had a chance to be at my computer much this morning, but I think maybe I saw a question come out about just like how you would like feedback about the materials. And so I would just love to hear that from you. Like, what would be helpful? Would you like, an email? Like if you could, and timeline, all of that would be very helpful.
As far as giving me feedback, I'm happy to hear about it here during the meeting, but also super thrilled if folks want to follow up with an email to make sure that I've got their comment clearly in my mind next time I'm working on it. That would be great. And sooner is better than later.
Okay, that is helpful. And I'm happy to, I just haven't had time to honestly like dig deep into this, but I would like to. But I will just say one of the things that I think, and maybe this would come in kind of the beginning of the training, not like this, section of it, is
Mhm.
just like why this is important.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, and how it fits into um the understanding that domestic violence is a pattern of coercion and control, and why figuring out how who the predominant aggressor is important for law enforcement and important for the integrity of the justice system and blah 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 blah, and victim well-being, of course. But just a little bit of the why, I think,
Mhm.
helps ground people in terms of like why are we bringing this to them this year.
Mhm.
And so that was the one thing that immediately kind of stood out to me, but I'm happy to look through the rest of it and send you, Jen, any feedback I have in an email.
Yeah, that would be great. So one of the weird things about the way my brain works is far as what you're talking about to me in my head feels more like an introduction piece. And I usually honestly write the introduction almost last because then I've got like the overview. So, but that's just the way my weird brain works. Chris?
Thanks. So a couple things, and some of this may be for me for clarity in trying to understand this process moving forward. But first thing I want to mention, because I just saw it and it just jumped out at me in that maze of control that you just put up on the screen. There was so much there and I really couldn't take it in and look at it all. But one of the things that jumped out to me was the phrase batterer in there. And I didn't think that that was an appropriate term still being used. So I'm going to defer to your expertise in this committee to making sure that whatever the language is that's in there is appropriate. But some of the other concerns I have about this is we started this process like some period of time ago. And I know that I've heard bits and pieces about who's doing what and who's speaking to what section of what the training looks like. But I'm not seeing a collective push towards a schedule, so to speak, so that we have a mindset of what does this look like? Who's the presenter? What's the material that you're presenting so that this entire group and I can take a look at what that training is going to look like as a complete picture. Where is this training going to be in when is it going to be at a situation where it's ready to be recorded so that we have a recorded version? What are the logistics of setting up where that's going to happen? Like my assumption would be that that would be at our PEG TV studios here, but that means scheduling with all the people that are going to do presentations, respecting your schedules, all that stuff that goes into that. So I know how quickly time can escape me. And so maybe this is all some things that you've already been discussing and I haven't been a part of. So I'll stop just there, just outlining some of those concerns and or hearing what those responses are to that.
1 second, I'm helping Loretta get in. Jen, if you want to jump in, or helping Heather get in, sorry.
Sorry. So we're, Ian and Darren are going to be, we hope to have that with actually in the next week or two, Jen. I'm pretty confident. They're part of their presentation. And as far as the regional part, I think we were going to wait until a little bit after winter, for people traveling and stuff like that to get the better weather coming in. And is Savannah here today? I don't think she wasn't feeling good, so I'm not sure she signed on. And she's gonna be getting back with the pieces to the advocacy part of it.
So the other thing to know about the schedule rollout is that Ian and this came up in the last meeting, it may have been before you signed on, Chris. Ian and Darren, who are providing the prosecutorial section of this, have 2 homicide trials that they are both appearing at. in January and February. So the likelihood is that the regional trainings are going to start in March at the earliest, which will get us beyond the, hopefully the really big snow months. And we will, I don't know that we've decided yet if we're going to try to hold like a regional training here and have PEG TV, work with PEG TV or see if they're available and record an actual class happening, or quite how we're going to do it.
Well, that's something that I think is our responsibility to figure out. And do they have the
Absolutely going to.
capabilities of coming here to be able to film that properly and edit where it would be able to be used on an additional platform delivery? Or does it make sense, given the fact that you have the agreement from Ian and Darren to, deliver the prosecutorial piece? Is it respectful of their pending schedules to have them maybe do a studio piece of theirs so that that piece is already done and you don't have to worry about if something happens with their schedules or they can't be incorporated into a individual regional location that you intended them to go to, that there is now this piece that's already filled up there. And so like and again, I'm not criticizing anybody's schedules or their work, but I'm seeing a partially created slide deck on one component of all the things that I've heard people speaking about. So again, wanting to be respectful of everyone else's time commitments and their ability to help put this together, are there set dates in place and time that people have as deadlines to make sure that we're meeting this? Because that time is going to skip away. And if we don't have those deadlines, then Jen, that dumps onto you for trying to wrangle all those people. And it would just be easier if we had those deadlines up front so that people know what the expectation is and that you're getting what you need to put this together in time.
Okay. Sarah, what's a good deadline for your section, for you, that you feel comfortable
Yeah.
with?
Well, I was just going to say, I think that would be really helpful. And I know we talked about kind of, I think, having clarity on when you'd like it, and then as soon as possible, the dates, times, and locations of the regional trainings, because I know we're already booking stuff well into 2026. So that would be super, super helpful to have. I mean, we can get something to you by November 15th, if that would be doable.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, it's
November
really
15th.
it's
Yeah, no,
up to
November
you
15th.
all.
I am not trying to schedule other professionals' time. I don't know what is a reasonable amount of time for you guys. So I'm looking to you for what you feel like you can do. And if that doesn't seem soon enough, then we can negotiate.
Yeah, if the 15th works for you, I think there's no problem with us getting that to you by then.
Sure, that would be great. Thank you. I will email, or Jen, actually, would you prefer to email Darren and Ian and let them know that we've got a November 15th deadline for
Yes.
their section to be ready to go, to be recorded, and we will then work on a date and time to record with PEG TV, and find out what is the process for them.
Okay,
And if we need to come up with some money.
okay.
I just had a question. I wondered if you could just remind us, I know you've talked about this before, when we would expect law enforcement officers to begin doing this training and when they would need to have it completed by. Because that helps me to think about deadlines, to know, like, when we expect that this training will be available to them and when we expect them to have it completed.
The goal is always for this training, since day one of this being required, is that it roll out in January and it must be completed by December 31st of that year.
That is the
Not-
expectation, Carolyn, because they,
Okay.
law enforcement are the ones that will be the first to reach out and say, where's the training? We want to take it. And while I still honestly believe that in-person training is better than online training, respecting, again, all of the agencies throughout Vermont that are going to be required to take this mandatory training. I want to make it available as soon as possible. So whenever that's why this is exactly how we went through this the last time when we were doing the fair and impartial policing training. And I tasked, I hate to say Lisa, with an impossible task then, she was just getting into the fair and impartial policing group of holding everybody to an accountable schedule and scheduling time for them to come and do their recorded session at PEG TV. And she really coordinated a lot. So we have a lot of that process already in place. It's just a matter of, Jen now kind of doing the same thing with folks from this group, understanding that we don't control your schedules and everybody is doing this willingly to help us. But the end result is, we're required to have this training out at the beginning of the year, and I don't want to continually fail at doing that. So I want to make sure that we're, for people that are willing to help us put this together, great. And for where they aren't or can't, then that's on us to pick up that slack.
And once it's rolled out that there's a recording, then the participation, if we have any in person, it's going to be very minimal.
I'd like to give law enforcement a little bit more credit than that, if they know those of you that are putting your time and effort into this, and they know you personally from their interactions, that they're going to go to where you're going to be regionally, at least to see them. That's my hope. I'm hopeful that law enforcement also has the same mindset that, interacting and in-person meetings are better than delivery online, but understanding cost and dollar figures, that's what a lot of people look at first and foremost.
Do Ian and Darren know that we're hoping that they will record their portion before January 1st? Has that been communicated to them?
Yes, they're aware of that.
Okay. And so do we then think, I'm just trying to understand exactly what this is going to look like. So January 1, we're going to have something recorded, ready to go to law enforcement. And then we're going to set up 4 regional trainings that will start around March. And then there'll be, I don't know when the other 3 would be, or if that's still the plan for 4. But I just want to have a picture in my head of what that will look like, because I imagine that if they reach out, it would be better than having them reach out, like, what's going on with this, for us to put out some sort of messaging like, yes, it will be available on a recording on January 1st, but we also are doing regional trainings in March, June, September, November, in these different areas. And if possible, it would be great to have in-person attendance from, law enforcement officers, but there is a recording in the event that that's not doable for your agencies or something like that. Like, do we normally do that?
Yes, I send out an announcement explaining when and how to access the delivery every time we release one of these trainings.
Like what the whole year is going to look like. That wasn't really my question, like how to access. I know that like people are told how to get into it, but like just what it's going to look like, so that people don't end up having to reach out and say like, what's happening? Is the mandatory training done? That sort of thing.
Yes, that goes out, and we still get the same questions because people don't read their emails or whatever. I'm still getting requests I've gotten at least 3 emails this week asking me what the 2025 domestic violence training is, because there's not one. It's a 5th year. So we put out this information, we release the schedule of training, we tell folks what's available, and then we have the same questions that what you're describing that you're trying to stop, it still happens. They get that information.
Okay. I think it would be great if somehow our committee was like copied on their communications, just so that if we run into folks, we can say like, you got a communication that explains that the training is available, just what you said, Jen. Because then I won't ask you the question again, but I feel like I've asked this question before, and it's because, another year goes by and I don't remember what we discussed for how that was going to work. But if that's possible, I think it would be great. It would just help to keep us up to speed with what's planned, where the regional trainings are. I know I would certainly like to come to one of the regional trainings and observe. So I'd love to know the dates of those as well.
Excuse me one second. I need to shut my door. And I can certainly either CC the entire committee on that email, or if it's going out to the agency head listserv, I can also send a copy to Sheriff Harlow to distribute to you all.
Thank you, Jen. That would be great.
Lisa, sorry.
That's okay. I just want to recognize, like, I'm not on the committee and I don't want to take up space and time. So if there's other people on this committee who are active members and want to say something, then they should, and I can wait. But I don't want to take up all the space. That's not my. So if anyone wants to go before me, that's fine. But I think what I'm hearing is a couple different things. I'm hearing that people are looking for an actual, like, physical schedule of, here are the training components, here's what Nicole's doing, here's what Sheriff Harlow, here's what Jen Furpo's doing, here's what Ian and Darren are doing in a package, and when that needs to be to either the chair or the liaison to this committee, and what that looks like. So what I'm hearing is that right now, Sarah's going to get her materials to you by November 15th. What I'm not clear on is, are those Sarah, is your portion virtual? Are you going to be going out? And it just, everything seems really disparate right now. So that's why I'm just trying to help the committee gear toward this conversation of what actually is the plan. What does the rollout and logistics look like? Where are the places you're doing it, so that people know what they can expect? So I just wanted to add that. Jen, you're muted.
So the reason I haven't set up next year's schedule for in-person dates is simply that it is a huge, first I have to negotiate the schedule with the trainers, then I have to see if there are training spaces left. It seemed to me that it would be smart to wait until the training was ready before I started doing that, but hearing what everyone's saying, I'm certainly happy to put the cart before the horse and do it the other way. So I'll work on that.
And I can just say, I do think it would be helpful for us to have it, like, I guess I had been under the impression, when there had been outreach to us about participating in the statutory update, that was going to be at the regional trainings. More than happy to also create a recorded version. But I do think just some of the details around when are we recording, where are we recording, how are we recording, and the dates and locations of the regional trainings would be super helpful.
Okay, I will get to work on that, and I will ask Lisa to set up a meeting with me so that she can explain to me how to deal with PEG TV, and we can set up those dates as well. Yeah, I know that in the prior meetings where we've discussed these things as well, I apologize if this was not in any way clear, but that we needed, from folks who were providing sections of material, that they were going to need to provide a recorded version and participate in any of the regional trainings that they were able to co-do. But in the event of, whatever happens in life and work that you're unable to attend at the last minute, that we would have your recorded version available as a just in case backup.
And I want to add to that, I don't want to do this just as a recorded backup. Like, from what I've heard of your meetings, there was a definite plan. People had stepped up and they were presenting their sections. What I hadn't heard was where regionally it was going to be, delivered and when. That was still kind of out there in the nebulous. But I think it's critical that if you're putting this together as a package and all of you are having individual components to that, that the package is put together first. And that way you have the recorded version. In the event that somebody can't make it, what is the plan? Who's the backup? Who's delivering that person's component? You know, how does all of that happen? And, you know, part of that is, while she may not want to hear it, it's our Jen's added responsibility now of that extra stuff, because Jen Harlow is, aside from a sheriff, aside from the chair of this committee, but aside from that, every time I see her on a meeting, she's got 2 or 3 other things going on at the same time. Those are the fears that I have of how do we make sure that this is all put together in a delivery package that's ready to go, so that if when you plan on a regional training, all of a sudden Sheriff Harlow can't make it, who else is taking that spot? Is it our Jen? Is she doing that delivery? Is it another law enforcement officer? Like what are the logistical plans for that? And I don't hear any of that going on. So the real difficult part of that, which is very often that, just the planning and the logistics. I know that our Lisa, I'll say my Lisa and my Jen, because they work here. Lisa has very great facilitation skills and scheduling skills, and I know that she'll work with Jen to help her facilitate that happening as well. But I just want this entire committee to be on the same page of knowing what those responsibilities are. And like, for instance, Sarah, if we try to schedule a time for you to come down to PEG TV to their studio to do your recorded version and you can't do that, we'll see about PEG TV going to you and doing it in a location that works for you. It's difficult, but the sooner we find this out, the better we'll know of how it works into everybody's schedule.
And I would just add, the sooner we know, the more I think we can work to protect the time on our schedules, which is great. I just want to confirm one thing I think I heard, but I'm unclear about. Was there, in terms of the release of the recorded version, and the sequencing of that with the regional trainings, I guess if we could just get clear about that and what the plan is, I think that would be helpful. I have a concern about releasing the recorded version first, like earlier, because I wonder why people would go to the regional training.
But
If
that's exactly what Sheriff Harlow said just a few minutes ago, but Director Brickell seemed more in favor of whatever we have ready first, not doing it that way, releasing everything all at once.
I guess what I'm hearing is that the recording should be the backup. I think there is I think I was hearing consensus that is the case, that the preference is for people to go to the regional trainings, but if not, then the recording's the backup. So I think just thinking through then how that's offered and by who.
So when I referred to using the recorded version as backup, when I said that specific sentence just a minute ago, my intention was, let's say we schedule that we're going to be in Lamoille County on May 13th, and Sarah's kids both get COVID and noro, and she just can't go. But yay, we've got her version already recorded from PEG TV, so we can slot that in to her section. That was what I meant by backup.
Okay. So there's not an opportunity for officers to do the whole thing virtually.
And that's where we have a disagreement, because I don't think that we can control the narrative over when an officer or when an agency is able to, for the same reasons that you may not be able to attend regional training. An officer might have a health issue, a family issue, a medical leave. You know, what I'm hopeful for is very much like what we did with the FIP training, was we have the entire training available online and a delivery platform that we figure out, whether that's Rizuku or whatever that platform is. And we are still going to encourage people to attend the regional training, because we believe that in-person training is better. But because of those causational factors that we don't have control over, whether, you know, like I personally don't feel like we have to wait until March or April when the snow might not, sometimes we don't get snow until March or April. So like the sooner we could do regional delivery training, I think the more that we're going to have people that when we know where it is, we're going to target those people and say, hey, it's coming to your area. Why would you go take it online? You can go set up, get your schedule ready to attend it that day. And then as a fail-safe for them, if they can't make that regional training, they can still do it because it's still mandated training that they're required to take. I will always argue for in-person training over doing it virtually online. But I don't think that while that may be the wish of the committee, that the larger law enforcement population is the hostages that we hold to what we want because it might not work for them. And that's the larger population that we're serving.
I think at this point, we probably also need to agree, at least amongst the people who will be going to these regional trainings to present, what is the minimum number of people registered to attend that you, like, are we going to roll out the whole dog and pony show if only like 10 people have signed up? What is your cutoff limit where you feel comfortable in donating your time to the process?
Loretta?
I think one of the other issues too is that I don't think one regional training a quarter is going to be enough for everybody to get all the officers done. So then that's a lot for the trainers, so I think we have to talk about that as well.
We did bring that up a few meetings ago when the initial 4 regional number was brought up. I looked back at the last time I did this as an in-person regional training, and I had to go out to 14 different locations, and there were other trainers providing the training. So you're probably right, but since we're also offering it online, the number of in-person trainings, I guess if people feel like they prefer in-person trainings, they're going to have to make an effort to attend the ones that are available, otherwise take it online.
I agree with you, Jen. I just think that we need to offer it both ways. So. I personally like in-person training more.
I wonder if there's any incentive for officers to attend in person.
What do you mean incentive?
I mean, exactly what like incentive is. I don't have anything particular in mind, but anything that would encourage them to, other than their own interests, like Loretta said, and I like in-person training. Is there any way that we can help to encourage them to attend an in-person training?
Kim, did you have a comment or question?
I did, but I wanted to wait to see if there was a response to Carolyn. I didn't want to jump on her piece. Though if training is held on Fridays, they can get a Sunday at lunch. So
yeah, no.
That's an
If there's an incentive.
I'm not in favor of offering prizes or Sundays or cookies or whatever. Your reward for going to the in-person training is you've got to go in person instead of sitting in front of your computer, I guess. But if other people feel otherwise, I'm happy to figure out prizes.
I think part of the reward for me is that you get to socialize a little bit with people that you don't normally see a lot. Like I don't get to see Jen or any of you other than these meetings really, but it's nice to be able to go and talk to others, see what's going on in other counties or whatever. So that's one of the reasons I like it. And I think that's an incentive sometimes for my guys too, is they get out of the office. They're not behind that computer and they don't have to take calls while they're in that training. They can't pause it and, hit the road.
So what's on my mind right now is this isn't gonna come out very well, because I'm like thinking and speaking at the same time, which is always a flaw. But I feel like, and not to, Chris, I don't want to say this in any way delaying any of the work being done. So don't, this is not a delay. But I do want to pull up a little bit, and if it's not at this meeting, at the next meeting, to review the roles and responsibilities of our committee versus academy staff. All the talk around logistics of how this is being delivered, in my mind, that is academy staff, and the support asked of this committee of, what topic should we be looking at this year? How, what are the ways that we think? Are there innovative ideas? Who, that brainstorming part is what I believe is the responsibility of our committee. And then committee members have stepped up to offer to do portions, which is amazing. So of course there has to be like logistics coordinated around that. But unless I've missed a historical decision of how this works, like, I don't think our committee is supposed to be figuring out the logistics for how this goes out. Unless we are, and again, I could be missing something, but if we are responsible for the logistics and scheduling and calendaring, like, we can take that on, but I'm just not clear on that. And to be perfectly honest, if that is our current responsibility, it'd be something I'd want to talk about for the future, about whether that's really a sustainable model from a committee structure that's supposed to be supporting the academy. And I'm sorry, my dog is ripping apart a book right now, so I'm gonna pause and let everyone just take a minute with those thoughts while I grab that book. Sorry.
Really glad you asked that, Kim, because sometimes I feel like I ask a question and then people are like, why are you asking that? That's not. So I feel like it would be really helpful if I want to be clear in what you all are looking for me to do. And I had similar questions around, and I like the way Kim articulated that. So that, I want to stay in my lane. And sometimes that's hard to know. So I think knowing we don't have to do it today. Obviously, we probably don't have time to do it today. But I do think that would be a great discussion to have, just so that we're all really clear on what the expectations are of us versus the expectations of the staff.
I'll make sure that I send an email out in regards to that for our next meeting. So everybody's clear on that. And if we're not clear, I'll get with the staff and the director and make sure it is before our next meeting.
I think that'd be great.
Yeah, I don't have any concerns, Kim, with your question, and rightfully so. A lot of that whole logistics piece is on us. That's our responsibility. But recognizing we had folks that were willing to actually do in-person regional training, I just wanted to make sure that we're respectful of whether they have the ability to, depending upon where those regional trainings are held, take that time out of their schedule in order to do that. So it's kind of conflating what our responsibility is and deferring some of that to the willing partners of this group that are willing to, help us put that training together. But you're right, if this was logistics and we weren't worrying about the members of this committee doing this training and it was just our staff that was delivering this training, then we wouldn't even be having a logistics conversation. We would just be taking care of that.
Good.
And I feel like we discussed this in a meeting 2 ago or something, is why we were going to be doing either the recording, but I thought that the PEG TV may be costing money and we didn't have any funds to do that. And no, it doesn't cost any money, Lisa. Perfect. Okay.
No, they're a
And
great
then that
resource.
like voiceover recordings, so that if somebody was not able to make the training, then we at least had that portion to present when we were there in person presenting. So. Yep. Thank you, Sarah. Okay. So I will get this all together and we'll have something, even prior to our next meeting to be sent out. So it's more clear for everybody, but we really do have to move on. Because Carolyn and Heather wanted to present on the Dale, so.
Thanks so much, Jen. Heather, do you want to just like do this together? I mean, we just wanted to basically update you all about some work that we've been doing. The Fatality Review Committee made a recommendation that we as a state look at lethality assessment tools. And so we formed a very small committee, certainly not representative of everybody, just some willing participants. Heather and myself and another person who is victim centered, Shannon McMahon, who many of you probably know. She was the executive director of Voices. She also did a lot of the training for the departments up in her area that were doing LAP. So she has a lot of familiarity with it. And also Director Brickell was part of our group. And then the state police have been using a LAP tool. And so Steve Coote, who was recently promoted and isn't probably going to be involved in further conversations, but he was kind of involved with this from the very beginning too, and Mandy Wooster to some extent. So what we were doing was just sort of a loose committee of looking at what was happening with Maryland, because the Maryland model is the one that the Vermont State Police used and adapted into their DV investigation form. And also the folks that Shannon was working with, the different agencies up in her area, the police agencies, they were using Maryland too. But Maryland, as I know all of you know, is moving to a subscription model, and the Maryland tool that we've been using will be unsupported starting sometime in 2026. So we thought it made sense to start looking at like, do we think the new model where Maryland's moving, what's it going to be like? Is it still going to work really well for us? And are there other models out there that we should be looking at? And so we reached out to DB Risk, which is a technical service provider that knows about all the lethality assessment tools out there. And we had a very like intentional process of them helping us to identify like, what are the different tools out there? What are the ones that you all see that you think are research, evidence-based, and what are they like? And they would connect us with someone who was very experienced with that tool. And then we basically interviewed them. And we learned that some of the tools are really geared more towards use in court, and making decisions like prosecutorial decisions. And everybody on the committee agreed that that was not really our focus, only because we thought the most important thing we wanted out of whatever tool we are using is what we're getting out of the Maryland LAP, which is connecting victims to services and also having them have some reflection back about the dangerousness of the situation that they may be in. So those were the most important things to us. And so there were a couple of tools. Heather, help me with the names, like Odessa, I think it's called Odera, not Odessa, Odera.
Yeah, Odera.
And we eliminated that pretty quickly. That's the one up in Canada because their focus was really very different. It really was law enforcement focused. And Appraise, a tool used out of Arizona by the National Fatality Review. It also was very law enforcement focused, and the folks at Odera who had been doing this very long time, they really encouraged us to look most carefully at finding a tool that really fit with what we wanted it to do. So that basically comes down to Maryland or this other one through the Geiger Institute that's called the DALE, which stands for Danger Assessment for Law Enforcement. And basically, they're very, very similar, almost identical. They're based on the same research. The Maryland model came out, I don't know, 2003, something like that. The Dale model is a more recent, the way they describe it is a more sensitive tool. It's designed to capture 30% of the most high-risk cases. So we liked that about it. And another thing we really liked about it was it has a lot of feedback. So Shannon reported to us that, she's been doing all this work, sends data and things like that to Maryland, and basically not a lot comes back the other way. Like, we don't hear much about, is the tool working? Is it being used in the way that it's intended to be used out in the field? And what are the issues that law enforcement are finding with it? Things like that. And Dale has more of a feedback loop built into it because they look at your data and then they help you to understand what it means. And they offer additional training. So, like, for example, one of the things they track is the declination rate. So it's on the Maryland form too. There's a box that says the victim declined to participate in this screen. But nothing's really done with that right now, at least in our state. And they use that they're looking for a certain number. They have an idea of like what the rate of declination should be. And if the rate is really, really high, it usually comes down to a training issue with law enforcement or victim services providers or whoever's administering this tool. And they come back and they support that and they do additional training. So we liked that about it. So we really like this model. We have lots of still questions and next steps. One of them is finding out, getting more input from law enforcement about this particular tool and whether they think it'll work for them. And so one of the things that our group was kind of hoping that we would be able to do is to get some time with the leaders in law enforcement at the sheriffs and at the chiefs, their upcoming meeting in December to come and talk about this and get some feedback from them. That's one thing we were kind of hoping to do. And also, finding out if there's some departments in the state that would be interested in piloting this, and members of our committee are reaching out to them, but also just throwing that out to you all to see, like, if you know of some departments that are really interested in being part of a lethality assessment protocol, that would be a good place to start. And I know there's lots of things that I haven't mentioned. I know we don't have lots of time, but I did want to mention that there's model protocols both for law enforcement and for victim service agencies. And those protocols, meaning those people are committed to it, need to be in place before the tool is trained on or used. So that's a way of ensuring that we have all the folks that we need to participate, victim service agencies, law enforcement. They also, in some communities, have medical providers that participate in this. We were focusing on victim service providers and law enforcement, basically what Maryland's LAP tool focuses on as well. And I'm going to stop talking because I bet you I missed a lot of things that Heather would like to say.
Oh, I think you did a great job, Carolyn. I think, I guess what I would add is just to what Carolyn said. I think we got a lot of really very clear information from the folks at Jeannie Geiger about the timeline, and they've got like seems like a pretty well-oiled machine that's like pretty much like a 9-month process once folks are interested. And I think I just would chime in to address just kind of where we're at, which is that we know that Vermont State Police has been using LAP, and it has been folded into the investigative form. And there are some sites where there's a victim, victim advocate connection that's really clear, and some that aren't. This would give us an opportunity to kind of reset and figure that out. And that is something that Jeannie Geiger, that's a big part of what they would do with us. So we were, or at least I will speak for myself and say I was definitely impressed with the I mean, Carolyn kind of touched on it, but just like the process and the technical assistance that is offered by them. The other thing I wanted to note, just in case folks are familiar with the high risk team model, which is something that the Jeannie Geiger Center developed. What we learned is that my understanding was incorrect, which is that these two things have to both be happening. So and this is only going to make sense to folks who may have learned more about this high risk team model. But so the high risk team model is something we looked at years ago when we were looking at LAP. It seems like a really great thing, but they and Jeannie Geiger could help us think about whether we want to do that in any of our communities, but they don't require one another. And so the Dale is really a standalone that can be combined with a high risk team model. And so I think that was really all I was going to add, the things that came up for me. Yeah, I guess I would just say again, because often I'm the one who's thinking about working on the connection with advocates. The other thing that is true of Dale is that they want advocates to be connected in the moment if they can, but it's not a requirement. So where LAP is like really it feels like a very intrinsic part of the connection. It is sort of more recommended than it is required that happen in the moment. So those are some kind of big differences I wanted to highlight. And yeah, is there anything else, Carolyn, you wanted me to touch on that you were thinking, or you can hop back in?
Oh, hold
I
on a
see that
second.
Jody has her
Jody
hand
has
up,
a
so I
question.
thought,
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Jody, go ahead.
Well, this isn't exactly a question regarding the assessment tool, but I was just wondering, is the VSP Victim Service Unit invited to these meetings?
they have not been a part of our small group. Lots of people have not been a part of that small group. But what are you thinking? Like,
Well, I was just curious because I know that they don't just work with domestic violence victims, but they do respond to all crimes. But with some of the domestic fatalities, I do know that, they do respond to that. So I was just curious as to whether or not they would have good input in this um, meeting, especially regarding around assessment tools.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think they definitely would. And it's definitely something that will be, I mean, having them weigh in on at some point. We just really wanted to report back kind of the work that the smaller team did to sort of explore what's out there. And I think the only thing, Heather, that I would add to what you said is there is some federal funding out there through the TA providers that helped us that would help a lot with the initial in-person training that's recommended. And so that's good to know. It's still a train the trainer model. So after the initial training, as you add new departments, as you add new officers, you still need you'll need local people to do that. I also Heather mentioned that it's that they do work with that high risk team model. One thing we really liked is like, even though our courts and our prosecutors aren't using this in an official way right now, this is a tool that would grow that way or could grow that way in the event that there was more receptivity in the future to using this kind of data in those decisions. So that's another thing that we thought was much better than Maryland, because Maryland is not intended to be used that way. And just because I didn't mention it, the Dale tool, it's meant to be used for IPV, so intimate partner violence. It's not a family violence tool. It does cover all same-sex instances. It doesn't matter what the gender is, but it doesn't cover family violence. And it's also not to be used, and this comes back to the thing we've been talking about today. It's not to be used in a situation where the police are not sure who the primary aggressor is. So I think that's a really important thing to note. It's not for juveniles, and it can be used. It doesn't have to only be used in situations where there's probable cause and an arrest is being made. Officers are taught that if they respond to an incident that involves domestic violence, service providers, if they're dealing with someone, even if it isn't a crime, this tool is validated to be used, even if they're irrespective of whether there's actually an arrest being made.
Carolyn, can I just chime in there just to say one more thing about your point, Jody? So we definitely are essentially just coming up with like a recommendation and are at the next step, but to get, feedback from folks. So we have a lot of notes about the 4 different tools that we looked at that we have like a chart we made to like share information with folks around. I will say that it wasn't an easy process, but there is some kind of clarity about things that make the 3 other tools we looked at like just really not working for Vermont, either because of the data collection requirement or the cost. So I think that I think it would be good for us to think about like how to share that information with folks. That's not to say that there isn't. I mean, we looked at I think 4 or 5, but maybe there are others out there. So we're definitely not like, this is what we should. I mean, we do think this is what we should do, but we're not. We're at the let's bring it to all the folks we can and get feedback from them, and so definitely at the feedback stage still.
We really just wanted to bring it to you all so you would know the kind of what this group had been working on, and to get suggestions from you about what we really need to do now is build more rapport with law enforcement. And the one suggestion that was made to us, and I wanted to see what you thought about that, Sheriff Harlow, was that there's a joint meeting between police chiefs and the heads of sheriffs organizations, and that might be a good opportunity to try to reach a lot of people at once. And I don't know if there's other suggestions for that. And the other thing is trying to identify law enforcement agencies, once they know about this, that might be interested in piloting the program. Those are kind of the 2 things we really wanted your help with figuring out. How do we do that?
Okay, I will think about that and get back to you I'm not sure. I think the agenda's already been made for our chiefs and sheriffs meeting this winter. Did you guys make it? I didn't look at it.
Yes, it has been made. It was sent out earlier in the
Right.
week.
Yeah, so I haven't looked at it in a few days, so I can't remember, but yeah. But I will get with you, Carolyn, on that and figure out, because I think a lot of departments, I mean, a bunch of us did train the trainers so that we could teach all our law enforcement in the area on the lap. So, or, start using that. So I think that hopefully there's going to be enough buy-in, and we'll just now continue with something different. So, well, thank you everybody for coming today. I really appreciate it. And thank you I apologize that I have a ton of stuff going on. That seems to be a problem. But that's my life. So, but thank you very much for letting me reschedule this meeting. I really appreciate it. And I'll be expecting an email from me within the next couple of weeks about what the next steps are going to be. But Jen, can you stay on for 2 seconds?
Can I say
Busy
one quick
people get
thing?
Things done,
Sure.
Sheriff, so
Yes.
we
I
appreciate
just
you.
want to, yeah, sorry. Totally appreciate you. Also, this risk assessment tool is very similar to LAP. So we
Yeah, I know.
hope
I've
that
had
it won't
trainings.
feel,
Yeah,
I
I've been to
know,
trainings with
yeah.
this, and I actually was wondering why Vermont wasn't using this ahead of time, but yeah, it's very similar. So it's not going to be a heavy lift for people. It really
Right,
isn't.
exactly.
So I think it's going to be, yeah, it shouldn't be a hard sell. Let's hope anyways. It shouldn't be.
Thank
So.
you.
Thank you. Jen, are you able to stay on for a second?
Have a nice weekend, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Do we
I
need
was-
to,
Oh, we have to
Okay.
adjourn.
yeah,
No.
I motion.
I second.
Thanks,
There we
Valeria.
go.
All right, bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
I was just gonna let you guys know if there's anything you need me to do that, needs, I'd be willing to
Okay.
help out.
Jen's going to stop the recording.
All right. See you guys. Have a good weekend. Be safe out
All right,
there.
you can stay on for a second.